Here's what I think is going to happen. The prosecutor in New York has done more to help Donald Trump get elected president than any single person in America today.
The idea of indicting a former president of the United States is deeply troubling to me, as it is to tens of millions of Americans, and particularly happening in what appears to be a politically charged environment in New York, where the Attorney General and other elected officials literally campaigned on a pledge to prosecute the former president.
Joining me now, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, member of the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Kaine, welcome back to the Sunday Show. I just want to also add to your list of titles, you were the Democratic vice presidential nominee in 2016. So I'm wondering your reaction to what Trump said yesterday.
Well, Jonathan, it's outrageous. There's no too low this guy can't reach. And every time you think he's bottomed out, he goes even further. You know, I lived in a military dictatorship in 1980 and 81 in Honduras, and I saw how authoritarians and dictators do it. I just never thought I would see it here. And people who are trying to circle the wagons to protect Trump, it's clear he's going to do what he's going to do. His character has been known to all for decades. But watching others try to kind of circle the wagons and protect him or question the ability of somebody to prosecute a former president, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a former president. You're not above the law. Right. So particularly I'm troubled by Donald Trump's encouragement of protest, because he knows, and he's intending, that it be a potential incitement to violence, at least in a way that would intimidate people.
Mm-hmm. So let's turn our attention to some foreign affairs. You and Republican Senator Tim Young co-sponsored a bill to repeal the authorization for the use of military force, which cleared the filibuster hurdle on Thursday, 68-27. A vote on the actual repeal will happen sometime this coming week. Today is the 20th anniversary of the start of the Iraq War. Talk about the significance of that to the AUMF's repeal.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Well, the Congress has not repealed a war authorization since the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was repealed in 1971. And that's because Congress tends to abdicate on matters of war, peace, and diplomacy, just defer to the president, because these are tough votes that could have some political risk. But since I came to the Senate in 2013, I've been working very hard to try to get Congress back in the game so that we don't just defer these decisions to the president. I'm fortunate to have Todd Young of Indiana joining with me, but also a very bipartisan group of senators. We had 2 absences on Thursday, so we would have had 70 votes to repeal these authorizations. We have a broad bipartisan group in the House. And you're right, the fact that it's the 20th anniversary is weighing on people's minds. Clearly, we should be able to say after 20 years, this war is over. Thank those who served in Iraq, recognize that Iraq is now not an enemy, but a strategic partner for stability in the region. It's very, very important that we do that.
And as we see on the screen, the toll of the Iraq war there, 4,550 U.S. military deaths, hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths, and $1.7 trillion. One more question for you, Senator. Vladimir Putin made a surprise visit to Ukraine yesterday, a day after the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. What do you make of that visit?
Well, it's Putin trying to put a brave face on what has been an unmitigated disaster. You know, we're now 13 months into an invasion that he thought would be a matter of days before he would topple the government in Kyiv. Instead, he's not only seen Ukrainian resolve that he didn't expect, because he's surrounded himself by yes men, but he's also seen Western nations led by the U.S. link arms to stand up for democracies against an illegal invasion by dictators. He wants to try to put a brave face on the situation. That was the reason for his little Potemkin village type visit. But the ICC indictment is just the latest of international bodies who can be frequently don't have a lot of backbone, looking at the facts on the ground here and calling him out for what he is. There's so many war crimes that are being committed that he is responsible for. I'm frankly impressed that the ICC had the backbone to do this indictment.
All right. And with that, we'll leave it there. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show.